Welcome everyone. I haven't been here for 4 months, not since November. Practicing Dhamma correctly and sufficiently, 3 to 4 months should show a lot of progress. The two necessary factors, correctly and sufficiently. To practice correctly, listen to Dhamma talks regularly. All my content is free. My talks are all similar. Listen over and over to what you have, and your understanding will deepen. For those who have not seen progress in their practice for years, it's because they've never heard of applicable and practical Dhamma. Most people go to temples for merit-making, at best to take moral vows. Very few go for sitting meditation, thinking that eventually wisdom will arise. There are different types of concentration. Wisdom won't arise if we mix them up. People don't know which type is for wisdom and which for relaxation. Almost all meditators practice the type of concentration for relaxation. Concentration for wisdom development is really rare. Few people are aware of it. When Prince Siddhartha was 7 years old, he could achieve the concentration for wisdom. He accumulated many past virtues, and this life was destined to be his last. As a child, he never had heard of meditation, but his past virtues guided him on the correct path. Similarly, children may have natural artistic talents, but they grow up and conform to the norm instead. Prince Siddhartha's situation was comparable. His virtues guided him to concentration for wisdom, but then he neglected it. When he fled his castle for an ascetic life, he practiced with hermits and attached to their meditations. Hermit's concentration is the type for relaxation, with the mind affixed on a single object. The prince did not yet practice correct concentration for wisdom, hence no fruition. When most people think of Dhamma practice, they think of calmness or stillness of the mind. People believe that wisdom will somehow arise from calmness. It cannot. Prince Siddhartha became aware of this fact before us. The hermit meditation keeps the mind on an object until it's calm and empty. The body and the world disappear. The prince learned long ago that this is not the correct path. He saw through it quickly due to his past virtues. We now have less virtues and tend to get stuck in calm meditation. It will take some listening. Previously, when I started teaching, people did not understand me. Some even criticized me, saying that I taught people not to do sitting meditation. Concentration is not about sitting. It must be present with whatever posture we are in. Without correct concentration, one could never develop wisdom. So, I stress the right kind of concentration. There are 2 different kinds of concentration. The first one, object examination, is when the mind stays fixed on an object. In the second, characteristic examination, the mind is upright and vigilant, noticing the 3 characteristics of body and mind. Both types of concentration are useful, but in different ways. For example, automobiles are useful. Airplanes are useful, but differently. Beds also have a totally different use. If we can achieve both types of concentration, we will be able to practice happily and smoothly. If we can achieve the first type only, it is just samata. No wisdom can be developed. The path to nirvana cannot be fulfilled. If we only achieve the second upright type, we won't be calm. it is tiring. This is walking a difficult and parched path. We could still enlighten following this dry path. This is called Sukha Vipassaka. Pure wisdom development without concentration for resting. So, if we can attain both types of concentration, let's do so. If we can afford only one type, choose the upright mind. Rough, but liberation is possible. If we only practice calmness, we can become hermits or Brahmas, but can never escape from samsara. To attain both types of concentration, we need a clear understanding of the principles. I emphasize this issue because I see two major weaknesses with laymen. The first is insufficient concentration. The second is lack of continuity in Dhamma practice. If we have right concentration and our mind is upright enough, we can develop wisdom. We will be active and continuous in our Dhamma practice. Enlightenment will be within our reach. Most people don't reach enlightenment because they don't have upright concentration. Most people's minds either drift away in thoughts or get absorbed in stillness. We should study our own mind thoroughly. If we get to know our mind well enough, we can attain right concentration. We can even attain both types of concentration, the calm and the upright. I meditated since I was 7, mindful of my in-breath and out-breath. At first, I practiced and aimed for calmness of mind. Whenever I thought of Dhamma practice, I would automatically aim for a calm mind. So, I practiced sitting meditation for calmness. Initially, mine was only slightly calm and floated away, traveling to heavens and such places. My mind was contented with wandering away. That was not fruitful. However, I saw that there is life after death, so I feared sinning and tried to be good. So I was aware of karma, but didn't know how to proceed. Then, after more practice, I felt that letting my mind travel around was useless. It's like watching movies with magnificent mansions and castles. But those are only seen on screen. No one can stay there. The images seen during meditation are like mirages, and not anything substantial. When my mind realized this fact, it would not travel away anymore. Then I practiced for calmness. My mind was calm and happy with my meditation practice. Calmness would not stay more than a week, even though I practiced every day. My mind would become restless again, despite my continuous practice. I was confused. I thought I was not skilled enough at meditation. If I was skilled enough, my mind would not be restless at all. Later, after I practiced vipassana, I learned this was not the case. The inherent nature of the mind is impermanence, progress and decline, again and again. I was aiming for the good side only, happiness, virtuousness, and calmness for meditation. But happiness is impermanent. Calmness is impermanent. Virtuousness is impermanent. When they decline, I thought I was not skilled enough at meditation. Actually, no matter how skilled, they would decline. We cannot aim for happiness or calmness as the goal of our meditation. We also cannot aim for virtuousness as the goal. All of these attributes are ever-changing. The real goal For all our diligent practices is for development of right view, right understanding. With right understanding, we see all aspects of our body and mind fall under the three characteristics: impermanence, suffering, and non-self. If we only practice calm meditation, we cannot see impermanence, non-self, and suffering characteristics of body and mind. When the mind is very still, sometimes bodily sensations disappear. We could then never see that the body is non-self. There is no body to see. Sometimes the mind remains still, not thinking, just stays empty. We could not see the ever-changing nature and mistaken that the trained mind stays empty forever. Such emptiness is not real. It changes, just like other states of mind. A fine state of mind of the formless realm. Learn this carefully. Many years later, I met with Father Dune. He taught me to watch my own mind, but instead, I kept my mind still and empty. He told me I was doing it wrong. I interfered with my mind. The nature of the mind is such that it keeps fabricating thoughts. He told me to try again. I realized he told me to watch. Watching is to know the current state of mind as it naturally is. Whether the mind is happy or unhappy, greedy, angry, deluded, or wholesome, know the mind as it is. Keep watching until the mind understands the truth of its three characteristics: impermanence, suffering, and non-self. By watching the mind, we will not only see the mind, but also the body. The body moves when the mind orders it to move, but sometimes the body doesn't follow orders. We can order our body to some extent, to stand, walk, sit, etc. Right now, our body may still follow orders, but sometimes it may not. As when sleeping, the mind sometimes wakes up and may order a finger to move, but it won't. The body stops receiving orders when the brain is not working. The mind gives order through the brain. Upon seeing the truth of the body, we see the body and mind are impermanent, suffering, and non-self. This is called wisdom, and it can be developed only if the mind is upright and mindful of the body and mind. I teach how to attain these two types of concentration regularly. Attaining both types is best, but the upright type is preferable. I teach regularly how to attain calmness concentration. If we want calmness, we must select a preferred object. Whichever object of meditation that our mind is happy with, stay with that object. Our mind is always restless because it keeps seeking happiness. It goes to see images through the eyes. It hopes to be happy. Watching movies. Do we expect to be unhappy? We don't watch movies for unhappiness, do we? When we go to concerts, listen to music, we hope for happiness, not unhappiness. We eat good food, we wear nice clothing, we hope to be happy. We chat and gossip with other people, we hope to be happy. The mind is always hungry for happiness, but cannot find true happiness. It runs around seeking happiness through the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind. Running around all the time, the mind never finds peace. It grasps and releases one object after another. It goes to see images through the eyes, and then becomes unsatisfied. It then moves to listen, to smell, to taste, to sense, to think. It keeps running around seeking happiness. So once we know this little secret, training our mind to be calm is not difficult. We must be observant and know which object of meditation that each of us is happy to stay with. Those who chant Puto and feel happy should use this mantra. When the mind is happy with Puto, it stops running to the senses and stays calmly with its Puto. This is achieving restful concentration. Let the mind stay with a single object. The mind will be happy, refreshed, re-energized. It is here that some people get attached to samata. They feel happy and satisfied and won't develop wisdom. Meditation masters push people to develop wisdom, not be stuck in calmness. If we do not like Puto, feeling irritated, we can use Puto, Dhammo, Sangho instead. We can actually chant any phrase we like, in any language. It's not about the wording. If we don't like the mental chanting, we can be mindful of our out-breath and in-breath. When the mind is happy with the breath, it does not run to the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind. This is the key to success. For people who do not like watching the breath, watch the abdomen. Watch the abdomen rise and fall until the mind remains there, happy and calm. They can then attain calmness concentration for a rest. Without this kind of concentration, sometimes our practice can get really difficult in some periods. When I started wisdom development, I stopped calmness meditation. I looked down on samata. I practiced for 22 years and got nowhere. Unlike wisdom development, where I progressed quickly. I didn't feel samata was worthwhile, stopped it, and focused on wisdom. The energy from my 22 years of samata supported me for only 2 years of wisdom development. After that, my mind did not have enough supporting energy. It could not see phenomena clearly. I saw small vibrational movements in the middle of my chest. I saw those vibrations all day and night, whether awake or sleeping. I saw this for a month or so, and it created a lot of suffering. Imagine listening to the same song or the same movie all life long. Would you suffer? It is the same thing. I saw the same phenomena vibrating inside nonstop. So painful. And I could not get away. My mindfulness was automatic, whether awake or sleeping. I discussed it with Father Put. He was at Salawan Forest Temple. There was an annual respecting late master ceremony on the 1st to 3rd of December. I went there and many were waiting for him to preach in the main hall, but he didn't go. He tried to solve my meditation problem first. He said that at the subtle level, it was normal for only these small vibrations to remain. I understood it's normal to see these vibrations, but I was too tired. When I practiced to this point, I was full of suffering and tiredness, and I couldn't get past it. No matter how much he tried to teach me, my mind would not accept it at all. He was so late. I told him he better go preach and I would figure it out myself. He had no more time and was already too tired. I went back and tried to solve my own problem, but couldn't. Then I wrote a letter to Master Mahabua. He answered me in a short letter, a few lines long. He said he just had an eye surgery and couldn't read or write a long letter. He sent me a big book, Dhamma preparation, along with the letter. I saw the book and was disheartened. I was stuck at this single point, but he gave me such a big book. I lifted the book to my heart, wished, and opened it at a random page. I was spot on. I hit the only page that I needed. He wrote exactly as Father Put taught me. At the subtle level, these are all that remain, small vibrations. This did not solve my problem. I already knew all this. But my mind couldn't take it anymore. It was too tiring. I tried to calm my mind by begging, "Can you please stop being mindful for a day?" Most of us have to beg our mind to be mindful, right? When we practice to a certain point, we may have to beg our mind to stop being mindful. My mind then would not stop being mindful. It still saw the small vibrations all the time. One day, in the morning, I was waiting for a bus on my way to work. At that time, I wasn't driving yet. I was exhausted from the vibrations, and it occurred to me to do some samata. I observed my in-breath mentally noting put and out-breath to. I was back to basic samata that Father Lee taught me when I was a child. At my in-breath mentally noting put and counting 1, and out-breath to, counting 2. After 28 breaths, my mind focused into tranquility. When my mind came back, it detached itself from those vibrations. All those vibrations no longer concerned me. This is the importance of calmness concentration. Practicing at some points can get tiresome. We need samata for a rest. We can choose in-breath put, out-breath to, or any other technique. When our mind is content, it may concentrate into tranquil state. It's refreshing, like a restful long weekend. So, if we can, let's do the first type of concentration. But for some people, I said they should stop samata. These people were attached to intensely fixing their minds on something like this. It was frightening. Even a dog would get scared. How could meditation be so cruel? So I told them that's wrong. Stop and practice more comfortably. I don't teach not to meditate. I teach correct meditation. Practicing with stress and strain is wrong. So let's do it correctly. If we want calmness, we practice the first type of concentration. Use an object of meditation that satisfies the mind. Activities like playing cards or trading stocks are no good because the mind jumps around. The meditation object also must not stir defilements. If fishing satisfies us, let's make sure to not attach a hook. If the line has no hook and no bait, no being will be lured or harmed. Use a stone instead of bait. Relax and watch the water flow by. The mind may calm down without hurting anything, and that is okay. If we wait to catch fish, the mind will be in an unwholesome state, without concentration. So for calmness, stay with a single object that the mind is happy with, and that won't stir defilements. If we can do so, we get a place of rest that can be so comforting. When I came back to the comfort of samatha, I got attached again, and stopped developing wisdom. Then I met Father Kampan at Tat Mahachai Temple. He was well known for blessing sacred amulets. People would line up for his blessings on their already blessed amulets. I too was waiting in line for him to bless my amulets. Now I don't have any. I gave them away upon my ordination day. I was waiting in line while he was blessing amulets for other people. Then he turned to look at me. He looked at my face briefly and said, "One who seeks a peaceful land walks a long and difficult path. When he comes under the calm shadow of a large tree, he just sleeps there, not walking any further." Here, he was teaching me Dhamma practice. I realized he was teaching me that I was attached to calm concentration. So I changed to not be attached to objects. Calmness concentration has both positive and negative aspects. There is another type of concentration that we have to achieve. It's okay if we can't achieve the first type, but the latter type is necessary. Without it, there is no chance of enlightenment. This second type is the mind that's rooted in awareness of body and mind. In simple terms, keep your mind with yourself. Is that clear? Youngsters may not understand. I can't make out what youngsters talk about anymore. I'm too old. People used to say, keep your mind within yourself. Be mindful. Feel within. This means each of us has a body. Let's not forget that we do. Each of us has a mind. Let's not forget that we do. Be aware of your body and phenomena within your own mind. This is keeping the mind within yourself, not forgetting your own mind, your own body. When our mind is drifting around, we are ignorant of our body and mind, aren't we? We simply forget about them, as if our body and mind don't exist. When we forget our own mind, our own body, we cannot see the three characteristics. So we must not forget them. The way to practice mindfulness is not difficult. Just be aware of our mind whenever it drifts away. Just be aware. This applies to any stage of concentration, from momentary to access to deep concentration. They all can become correct concentration with an upright and stable mind. If we cannot get into deep concentration, use any meditation object, whether Putto or watching the breath. But not for the mind to stop and stay still with the meditation object like samata practice. Do so to see the mind drift away in thoughts and when it comes back to the breath. If we chant Putto, be aware when the mind drifts away or stays in emptiness. If we watch the abdomen, be aware when the mind drifts away or is fixed on the abdomen. Just choose a suitable object of meditation and observe the mind. These two types of concentration are different. The first type is when we focus on a single object, feeling calm and happy. The second type is when we use an object as a base and be aware of movement of the mind. Do not go on forcing the mind to stay fixed on the breath. Do not force the mind to stay fixed on the hands, the abdomen, or the feet. Do not force the mind. Just be aware of it whenever we repeat Putto or observe the breath. Whenever the mind drifts away in thoughts or to the hands, the abdomen, the feet, just be aware of the drifting mind. There are only two ways the mind can drift: away in thoughts or fixing itself to something. To drift away in thoughts is to forget the body and mental phenomena. The drift towards an object, focusing on the mind or body, everything will become still. If the mind drifts into thoughts, the mind will forget about the body and mental phenomena. This is restlessness. If the mind attaches to the body or a mental phenomenon, this is samata. If the mind does not drift away, or does, but we are aware of it, this is gaining upright concentration. See, different mental paths, give different results. If the mind wanders into thoughts, forgetting the body and the mind, this is a restless and non-virtuous state. But if the mind drifts away, thinking positive thoughts, it can be virtuous. This is a good mind, but without mindfulness, it will keep us stuck in samsara. For example, if we only think about almsgiving and merit-making all day long, it is virtuous, but we are forgetting the mind and the body. It can lead us to the heavenly realms or other favorable rebirths. But most people, when their minds drift, they tend to think negatively. When we think of something, we tend to have negative rather than positive thoughts. Consequently, without practice, most people are destined for lower realms rather than higher. So if the mind drifts out, away from body and mind, there is no samata. But if the mind moves to focus on the breath, the feet, the hands, or any one object, this is samata. If the mind drifts away and we realize so, this is gaining upright concentration. The drifting mind is diluted with defilement, called uttaka. Whenever we are aware of the restless mind, it will automatically become upright. This is gaining upright concentration, which is the opposite of the restless mind. So whenever the mind is restless and wanders to think, just know so, and we will automatically achieve upright concentration. So we all have to practice every day. Set aside 15 minutes. I am not asking for much. Pray and do some chanting, maybe for 5 minutes, not excessively. Then, choose an object of meditation and be aware whenever the mind drifts from it. Whether putto or watching the breath, we observe the mind drift into thinking, into the breath or anywhere else. With more practice, mindfulness will see the drifting, and an upright mind will arise automatically. This is the easiest path to practice, but there is another rare path for jhana meditators. That is getting into deep concentration until the second jhana. In the first jhana, the mind is not yet awake as the knower. It still applies focus towards the object of meditation. When the mind is aware of the drifting towards the object, contemplation will cease and the mind becomes upright. This method is for jhana practitioners. Most of us cannot get into deep concentration. Let's just do what we can. Whether watching the breath or putto, just be aware of the mind that is drifting away. We will finally attain the mind that is awakened, the knower, not the thinker or storyteller. After we attain the mind that is awakened as a knower, the next step is wisdom development. There are 2 steps to wisdom development. The first step is wisdom development, which is pre-vipassana. The second step is wisdom development at the level of vipassana. Vipassana is truly seeing the 3 characteristics of physical and mental phenomena. Be aware of the present. Observe physical and mental phenomena and see their 3 characteristics. This is vipassana. Early in our wisdom practice, we must try to distinguish the body and mind from each other. Some people will be more comfortable watching their body. They should practice separating their mind from body. If we don't like to watch the body, we can try to separate our mind from cetasikas. What are cetasikas? They are conditioning factors co-arising with the mind. The mind is what's conscious of an object. Cetasikas condition the mind into various states. One cetasika is called vedana, feeling pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. The mind is merely conscious of an object. Feelings accompany it. When the mind is accompanied by pleasant feelings, it's a happy mind. When accompanied by painful feelings, it's a suffering mind. Even though the mind is merely conscious, it fluctuates according to the conditioning factors. For the mind that is angry, greedy, deluded, the anger, greed, and delusion are factors conditioning the mind. These factors taint the minds with different characteristics. Therefore, the angry mind is different from the greedy mind. We should learn to differentiate the mind and cetasikas. Separate the mind and its conditioning factors. We find this hard, then we can separate the body and mind instead. We can try both out if we don't know what practice fits us. We can chant, then sit in meditation, straight but relaxed, not too stiff or too lax. Just sit peacefully, feeling the body breathe while having the mind separated as the watcher. Try this if we are initially unsure of what to separate, whether mind and body or mind and cetasika. Let the mind be the knower and watch the body breathing, walking, standing, etc. Eventually, with more practice, we will be able to see that our body is not ourself. The body is like a cave that is only a temporary home for the mind. The body and the mind are different things. The mind is the one watching the body. It observes the body breathing, standing, walking, or sleeping. This is already what's called separating the body and mind. If we cannot separate body and mind, be patient and continue to sit still until soreness arises. When soreness arises, do notice that soreness and the body are two different things. The body has been sitting still, but soreness happens later, so they must be different. Then continue to see that soreness is an object known by the mind. At first, the mind sees no pain, but then soreness comes to be an object of the mind. We could then see that soreness is neither the body nor the mind. This is separating the cetasika, called vedana, separating unpleasant, pleasant, neutral feeling from the mind. Stay determined and don't change your posture even with the pain. In the early stages, no pain, no gain. Be patient, but also know your limits. Sitting longer, the body will feel more pain, and the mind may start to feel agitated. We will be able to see that the pain is at the body, but agitation is at the mind. Originally, the mind did not see agitation, but it came to taint the mind later. Agitation is a kind of mental fabrication, another cetasika. Anger, greed, delusion are also cetasika in family of mental fabrication. Virtuousness is also a fabrication, not a pleasant, unpleasant, neutral feeling. Keep practicing and see that the body and mind are different. Pleasantness, unpleasantness, that happens to the body is another thing, not the mind or body. With longer sitting, the body will feel more pain and the mind whines. Will I be crippled for life? I'll never walk again. This is restlessness. In all my years among meditators, I have yet to see someone get crippled from sitting meditation. But far more are maimed from getting drunk. Sitting meditation will not cause physical harm. The only pain is your whining. If this is difficult to see, do have some patience. Eventually we'll see. This body is one thing, feeling is another, agitation is another. However, this practice is not vipassana yet. We must continue to see the body subject to the three characteristics. The body is suffering. It is oppressed by discomfort, exhaling, and then the need to inhale. When standing, walking, sitting, or sleeping, the body is suffering. This body is only a suffering mass, not something special. This is called wisdom development, seeing the body as suffering. It cannot withstand staying in a single posture, always in discomfort. Regarding the mind, it is easy to see impermanence. The mind is happy for a while, and then it's not. Similarly, suffering or neutral feelings also come and go, always changing. Likewise, a virtuous mind doesn't stay long. Many woke up early to come to my talk. They took a long drive here, but after listening for a while, their willingness to listen disappears and want to go home again. As we continue to practice, we keep seeing more and more impermanence. There is no such thing as a permanent mind. Everything is transient. As we practice, we see that any happy or sad mind, good, angry, greedy, or drifting mind are all impermanent. It's easy to see impermanence in the mind and suffering in the body. Constantly be aware of your body and mind. See the truth that the body is a suffering mass. See the truth that the mind is impermanent and non-self, uncontrollable. One can't order to always be good and pure, to be happy or stop suffering. It's just not in our control. Keeping mindful and seeing the three characteristics of body and mind is called wisdom development at the vipassana level. Separating the body and mind is still samata, not yet vipassana. It is wisdom development in early stages with concentration, but not yet vipassana. Gradually practicing, we can all reach vipassana. There are many possible paths of vipassana, but in each, we must see physical and mental phenomena exhibiting the three characteristics. Those good at observing the body see it walking, standing, sitting, lying down, breathing out and in all day. Here, the mind must be present as the observer. If the mind sinks into the body, there can be no wisdom. The mind must be separate from the objects it is watching. Also with happiness or suffering, the mind must be the watcher. They need to be separated. Virtuousness or non-virtue as in greed, anger, and delusion also need to be separated. Slowly practice separation of all these aggregates. At first, it is separation by the power of concentration with the upright mind. Once the mind is upright, all the aggregates will be separated. But for an arahan, his or her aggregates are separated for good, never returning together. In that state, nothing can taint the mind again. The mind never picks up the aggregates, totally separated, totally removed from each other. But this separation is strange. Unlike the early stages where the mind and aggregates separate into two groupings. But at the final stage, they need not be separated. They exist together, yet untangled. How so? The arahan's mind is without limits, unbounded and non-located. The mind pervades and is at one with the universe. It need not isolate itself from the universe or physical and mental phenomena. They coexist but do not impact or entangle, as if they are there but in different layers. The state vastly differs from our initial practice. Who here has seen the detachment of mind from objects? Please raise your hand. Oh, a lot. As we continue to practice, we will see a different kind of separation. Keep up our practice, and we can all get a marvelous gift. Just aim modestly. at least stream entry within this life. Once attaining stream entry, then aim for the second stage of enlightenment. I have a long-time friend that used to visit temples and masters with me. Once we visited Father Ted. Very early in our practice, my friend said, "Father, I want to shed sensual desire, but my mind still wallows in it." Father exclaimed, "Oh, if there's still wallowing, there's no letting go." Actually, he was fighting beyond his capability. Shedding sensual desire is for one seeking the third stage, not the first. The stream enterer discards the false view that the five aggregates are a self. In fact, no self can be found anywhere, in or beyond the five aggregates. They are not our self. The stream enterer sees this truth. Let's try to see as they do, frequently. Seeing the truth enough, our minds will accept it and reach the same understanding, same state of mind. Let's practice and watch our body and mind work on their own. We will see only impermanence, only suffering, and only non-self. We will see only phenomena that arise and fall, never a permanent self. Keep seeing it over and over. Once the mind has seen enough, enlightenment will occur. Wrong view will be eradicated. The idea of self will be no more. When the stream enterer reflects on his or her mind and body, they appear empty. A body exists, a mind exists, but they are void of self, no longer felt as their self. The body will be felt as if something hollow, no self to be found anywhere. The mind will also be felt as empty, no self to be found, but the mind continues to work. The stream enterer knows the mind is not a self, but the mind still reaches out to grab this and that objects. There is still acting, but no actor. The stream enterer realizes there is no self as actor, but their mind still works. The mind is still working, wanting, fabricating, and clinging to various objects. Objects in the world can still return to taint their mind despite the lack of self. But for an arahan, it is different. There is no acting and no actor. Their mind no longer reaches out to grab anything at all. Has anyone ever seen the mind reaching out its mysterious hand to grab objects? Please raise your hand if you've seen this. Good. If there weren't enough of you after all these years, I'd have to reconsider my teachings. It seems my teachings are good enough. Keep practicing. First, keep the 5 precepts. Otherwise, the mind will be restless. Then, train the mind in both types of concentration. For the first type, entice the mind with a virtuous object that pacifies it. For the second type, meditate on an object and notice the mind drift into thought, and notice it go into focus. The mind will become stable and upright, achieving correct concentration. Upon upright concentration, move to wisdom practice. Separate the mind and body. Watch them as such. Watch with the mind apart from good and bad feelings and fabrications. Then continue to vipassana. See the body always and unavoidably under stress. See the mind as impermanent and not under control. When wisdom practice loses power and watching the mind is tiring and ineffective, watch the body instead. If it's too hard to watch body or mind, then do samata. Here's the advantage of samata practitioners. For others, it's like poor people who travel with a backpack. If they want to go north, they walk until they can't anymore and collapse there. They may only have a polluted water to bathe in. For a samata practitioner, it's like going north by car. Traveling leisurely, enjoying the scenery, they may stop short of the intended destination. At dusk, they may stay at a hotel, bathe, eat well, but again, the comfort may stop their journey short. So calmness concentration has both benefits and drawbacks to it. Let's keep practicing, and we'll reap great benefits from being Buddhists. Buddhists should not stop only at generosity, morality, or meditation for a peaceful mind. Those are too commonplace. Precepts and calmness meditation have been around, even before Buddha. But training the mind to become the knower, the awakened mind, and then use this mind for wisdom development, this is something only the Buddha taught. Being fortunate to have found Buddhism in this life, let's practice it like I have taught systematically. I teach quite differently than previous masters. In the old days, there weren't many meditators. I learned from several masters. Each had plenty of time for me. Sometimes, I'd visit them again years later, and they could still remember me. They said practitioners are rare. Now there are lots of Dhamma students. I cannot teach one-on-one. I have to give an overview. Each of you need to observe yourself. See where you're at and how to proceed. I've given an overview, so investigate your progress and continue. For example, if you only have calmness, then develop an upright mind. With an upright mind, practice separating the body and mind, if they don't do so readily. After separation, if the mind diverts to think about impermanence, suffering, or non-self, be aware of it. With body and mind separated, the three characteristics must be seen, not thought about. Vipassana is seeing. Passana is to see. So vipassana is to regularly see the body and mind working. Keep developing a quality mind. When wisdom is ripe, the noble path will appear. Keep up your practice. I can't help you if you don't. In the year or so that I've talked here, I can see great improvements. Can you all see this? Your minds have become agile and bright, light and clear, a lot of change. From gloomy to bright and clean, from no to some mindfulness, from wrong to right view, the aggregates are separated, none of which is the self. I'm so glad to see this. I congratulate most of you. Only a few of you are too embedded in thought.